All right, we're in the studio with Anthony Riley. We are about to interview him for his documentary on the work he does with medical dispensaries, along with the benefits of medical marijuana. Because you do medical marijuana for health reasons, right? Okay.
Right.
All right, now let's start off. Let's talk about what is it that led you to the medical marijuana? Were you a recreational smoker before, or you really had to?
Well, actually, what happened was
Look at me.
Okay. Actually, what happened was I was using it after I got my brain injury. I have a traumatic brain injury, and my neighbor gave it to me, actually. And so I was getting it from my neighbor, and I was making all these trades. Matter of fact, one trade that was really one I'll never forget was I traded him an MC Hammer and Bobby Brown mix CD for a bag of herbs that was a little bit wet. Let's just say that. It was a little bit wet. Like he maybe just pulled it off of a tree out of his backyard or something. So that was kind of like one of my first experiences with cannabis and marijuana. And, after that, I started to use it a little bit more, but I didn't really start to learn about the benefits of it until 2011.
Okay. How does it help you with your brain injury?
Great question. So it helps me with my brain injury because it helps me with anxiety, helps me with focus. It also helps me with pain. I have a lot of injuries from when I've had falls and things, and just from being assaulted. I was assaulted on my 15th birthday, so that's how I got my brain injury. And so I have a lot of pain. I have a lot of health issues. Medical marijuana definitely has changed my life as far as the level of pain that it takes away, the level of anxiety. There's nothing else. There's no pharmaceutical. It's still good. There's no pharmaceutical that would ever replace medical marijuana as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. What made you be an advocate for it? What was it that inspired you to be an advocate for it? Was it your own story, or was you finding your story within other people who were also turning to medical marijuana?
I think it's a mixture of both. I had a lot of people who used it that were friends and family and even neighbors, and all of them were getting it from whatever sources. And, I thought, if this could help me, this could help other people, but they're going to not want to try it because they're not going to want to trust it. So then I start realizing, in order for me to be able to advocate, I had to know what I was talking about. So I had to start learning from the people that was producing these products exactly how this medical marijuana was produced and what was the difference between medical marijuana and the stuff I can get from the guy on the street.
What have you learned about the difference between medical marijuana and the street weed?
Well, in the street weed, what happens is you have a bunch of products that are coming from different sources, some local, some not local. You don't really know what's in it. When I say what's in it, I mean as far as pesticides, chemicals, or things like that. There's mold. Mold is very, very common in cannabis. And one of the biggest things is mold, bugs, mites, things like that. And average users don't really probably pay these things any attention or even think to worry about them. But when you get into the medical industry and how medical cannabis is produced, the testing that they do is just intense as getting a blood lab done on your own blood work. It's they're using the same equipment that they would use to do blood work to be able to test this cannabis to see, whether there's any pesticides in it, whether there's any mold in it. So in order for me to advocate with people, I had to first educate myself about medical cannabis to the point where people will say, he knows what he's talking about.
Okay. Really good answer. Okay. Now, you came from using it. You came across it, right? You came across it just looking for something to alleviate the pain.
Right.
I'm guessing that's how you came across it.
Right.
From there, you dug deeper into it and discovered the medical marijuana, which it probably had to be kid in the candy store at that point, right? Different flavors, different ingredients.
Well, at the beginning of the program here, it wasn't like that because it was a very limited selection. Okay. I didn't get to actually really experience the broad spectrum of products until I decided to take a trip to Michigan. And that's when I started to learn about terpenes and cannabinoids and the difference between CBD and cannabis, and why there was this there's this dramatic difference between the two things. Even though it's still the same plant, the effects are dramatically different.
Okay. Hold that.
Gotcha.
Because we're gonna get to that. Okay. now, since I met you, right? You jumped. It seems like you jumped head first in the cannabis advocacy. You got the hat. You got your own logo. It was a meeting you. It was a big difference between somebody who just smoked weed because they like smoking weed, and somebody who was smoking weed for a purpose. And to be honest with you, I haven't came across too many people who decided to start smoking weed for the medical reason. And it's convincing. You stick to that. So it's not a game to you. It's not nothing that you have fun or brag about or make yourself look cool, right?
Nah, that's kind of over.
Okay. Now, talk a little bit about the video work you do for these cannabis companies, because it's a little bit more than video stuff. Like it seems like you're more than just promoting for them. Like, so talk a little bit about the work that you do for the dispensaries.
Well, it's not just for the dispensaries, but also for the cultivators. The work that I do is basically providing information to people about these different dispensaries, where they are, what kind of products are they offering, and where do they come from. And, what I've been able to do is, investigate. When I say investigate, that means go inside of these facilities and look and see what kind of stuff they're growing, what kind of dirt, whatever it is. It'll time out every few seconds.
Okay.
As long as it's lights flashing, we're still recording.
I'm noticing that. It's blank. I freak out. That shit
Cameraman stuff.
That shit happened to me at a wedding once, and the battery dead.
Yeah. Now pay attention to that guy down there, because that's the real power down there. If that guy goes down, now you won't know.
Yeah, we in some trouble.
So being able to show people inside a facility, be able to take a picture, to record a video inside a facility is very rare. The way the state has set up the state's program, advertising is very limited to social media, and they're not able to put up billboards. Like Michigan, they can do a lot more advertising. The Ohio market is very restrictive on advertising, just as restrictive on advertising they are on testing. And this has kind of made it hard for people to connect that there even is a program, and is it worth me being bothered with it. Many people don't know we have 84 dispensaries. They're still thinking there's 10, and that there's the reason to go all the way up north. And we have drive-throughs, we have curbside, we have one-line ordering. There's so many innovations that have come out of this program, especially because of the pandemic. It's just basically been an ongoing learning experience, and then to be able to share this information with people. It's turned into more than just making a video about a review or about a dispensary, to actually providing a public service to people who are disconnected from the regular news media, who doesn't really spend a lot of time covering Ohio's medical marijuana market.
Okay. Now, what are some of the challenges associated with Ohio? Because it's still illegal. You still can't put your money in the bank, but it's legal, but it's still illegal. Like, it's
How does
not
that work?
It's not really viewed. And see, that's the weird part, because it's not really viewed as illegal like it used to be, right? So what are some of the challenges associated with marijuana just being everywhere, different flavors, different stores, it's legal. Like, even if you can't get it in a dispensary, there's somebody in the street with dispensary weed.
Or they claim dispensary weed.
Yeah, you got that too, the damn candy bags and all that.
Yeah, designer bags. So, what's really been interesting is the fact that each dispensary in Ohio has to have a DEA license to operate. They also have to have a DEA holder, a DEA license holder, a pharmacist or someone that has a DEA license affiliated with the dispensary, like a pharmacist, more or less. Every dispensary has to have that. They also have to have a compliance officer, which is someone from the state that oversees it. They also have to answer to the Department of Commerce. So they have to answer to the Department of Commerce, the Board of Pharmacy, and then, they also have to answer to the people. But at the end of the day, the challenge is that the state hasn't provided a lot of education that's easy to access. There is a state website, Ohio Medical Marijuana.gov, but you'd be surprised how many people spell marijuana incorrectly. If it was OhioWeed.gov, I bet you it would have gazillion views on it. But we're still spelling it with marijuana. Marijuana, that word has, been stigmatized quite a bit. So a lot of us have been trying to reuse it or bring back the word cannabis. But marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, is still weed.
So that's why I'm seeing the term cannabis more than marijuana.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering where the hell does the cannabis trend came from, but now it makes sense.
And now we're using adult use instead of rec. So when you hear adult use, we're trying to regulate marijuana like alcohol is what the campaign is.
Okay.
And that's a different path that we're trying to take. Our cannabis community, we have a lot of people that cannot afford the doctor's fee to become a medical cannabis patient. Little do they know the price has dropped like 50% because no one's signing up. So, those are the challenges, trying to get people to enroll into the program and pay the state a fee, basically admitting to the state, I use cannabis. That's a problem there. And then the other thing that no one knows about, this is a huge problem, is that the program they use to monitor cannabis sales is the same program used to track opiate abuse. So it's like a program, here's tab A, opiates, tab B, marijuana. And any doctor in the state of Ohio or any pharmacy in the state of Ohio can access what you bought at the dispensary. And that's a little unnerving. To be at the dispensary, to be at the pharmacy and be like, how's that Larry OG treating you? And, one time I have a lot of doctors that had a prescription. I went to the pharmacy and pulled out my medical marijuana card instead of my insurance card by accident. And it engaged a whole new conversation with the pharmacy. And they was just too tickled that I had my card, and they had all kind of questions, and it became a learning experience. And that's typically what happens every doctor I visit when I tell them I use medical cannabis. It's like open up the school books now.
So are you teaching the doctors things?
Oh, absolutely. Like I bring stuff to the doctor's office and I show them, I give them the dosages that I use. I explain to them how I use it, why I use it. I had to have surgery on my throat. They thought I had a cancerous tumor in my vocal cord, and they cut it out. And I kept telling them, man, is it related to cannabis? I need to know. I'm an influencer. I'm in cannabis. If I gotta stop using cannabis, this is gonna end everything. They was like, no, we don't think it has anything to do with that. We're sure. I was like, are you sure? So I brought my vaporizer into the doctor. I said, here. He goes, what is this? I said, man, if you dropped that $300 vaporizer, you bought it, bro. He was like, it smells like marijuana. I said, there's nothing in it, bro. I dipped in the alcohol before we came here. Stop it. You don't smell marijuana. You smell vapor. So and he was like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. He was waiting for me to whip out some papers and some bud. I whipped out a $300 vaporizer because the state of
what it was.
Yeah, the state of Ohio doesn't allow smoking in the medical program. It's only vaping.
Wow.
Because the governor and all these other people did not want to have smoking, because we had that time where they was putting in a smoking ban for cigarettes. It was like, no smoking. How can we say you can't smoke a cigarette,
can't smoke it,
but you can smoke a joint? There would be the argument, hey, he can smoke a joint right outside, but I can't smoke a cigarette out here.
Okay, so we got to get past that. That's one of the hurdles we got to get past before it becomes totally illegal. What do we do with the cigarettes? Is that one of the challenges?
Cigarettes?
It sounds like you never think about it, but the point that you just made, it makes sense.
They're trying to make cannabis cigarettes now. They're moving into it. Marlboro's interested.
But, here's the thing, Tony.
Would you buy some Newport weed?
No. That is very suspicious. Newport done killed too many people. Now they selling weed. Y'all just basically drug dealers at the end of the day. All right. Okay. All right. We are 14 minutes, right?
All right. So how do we close this out?
We close this. I want you to educate the viewers on the terpenes, the CBDs, the THCs, all the ingredients that make the medical marijuana worth it. Because these are the things that separate it from the street weed, and you can taste it. It's a total difference.
It is.
So what are the terpenes, the CBDs, the other ingredients? What are those, and what are the values that they have?
The most popular terpenes that are in medical cannabis, and really in cannabis in general, are linalool, myrcene, caryophyllene, A. pinnae, B. pinnae. Those are some of the big ones. As far as CBD goes, most cannabis that average user is going to use is going to have a very low trace amount of CBD in it. And when people think about CBD in the store, they say, oh, it's 0.03 of THC. That's nothing, right? Well, no, actually, that's actually something. Depending on what terpenes are associated with that particular plant, it may have a stronger entourage effect than something that is 30% THC. Because in reality, THC is only one cannabinoid and many other cannabinoids. And there's THC 9, there's delta 8, delta 9, delta 10, delta 7, delta 0. So there's so many THCs we ain't even touched yet. Everybody just knows the one that we all think is the one. But then you have things like CBG, which is very similar to CBD, but CBG has been known to help with pain, inflammation. It's something that they're putting in vape carts now because it helps people who I have a lot of inflammation, that's why I use it. And you can also get CBG in a cream in a smoke shop or a CBD store by itself without THC, but it works better in conjunction with THC. So some of these cannabinoids, CBD, CBG, and there's also CBC as in Charlie, these all work great on their own, but they work even better when you add the THC. So this whole idea of selling a CBD only product and a THC only product, the person still needs both things together. You need all the cannabinoids you can get to figure out what your cannabinoid panel is. Each person's cannabinoid panel is different. Whatever works for you will not work for me necessarily. And if you have locked in, certain terpenes will be more effective at different things, like myrcene. So people think that's really good for pain, stomach, inflammation. Linalool, people say it puts you to sleep. You get a high dose of limonol in it, you'll be out. Caryophyllene has been known to help with focus and concentration. So a lot of strains that I purchase have caryophyllene in it. Okay. As far as strain names and hypes and things like that, believe it or not, a lot of these strains have history to them. They have lineage, they have history that breaks down what they really did before it became just a marketing ploy. So there's a lot of strains out there. People just making up names, but there's actually strains that are not made up, and these are original strains that have their own, what they call land races. Mm-hmm. Land race is basically the copyright. Like Meigs County Gold, Acapulco Gold is a land race from Meigs County, Ohio. Do we sell it in our program? Do we got Meigs County in our program? Sure we do. But is it that Meigs County? No. Because they didn't get the land race. You got to get the land race in order. It's like you got to have the seed from the guy that started it first, right, to get the land race. Now we have guys that grow that have their own land races in our program. They go to a different company, they take their strains with them. So that's another thing about the medical industry is that a lot of these growers, they get partnered with these seed breeders, like one that's real known as Seed Junkies. We use that in our program. They use it in Michigan. They use it all over the country. Seed Junkie. They the guys that sell the seeds. They don't grow it, they just sell the seeds. Mm-hmm. And these seeds grow great product. So a lot of people say, oh, I want to get something from Seed Junkie. Okay, then you go find a cultivator in our program that deals with Seed Junkie. You can get product that's grown from that seed family. Mm-hmm. We have another one called Josh D. Josh D is legendary. He's like Nike of cannabis in some way. Like, oh, I've heard of him, but like he doesn't grow anything anymore. He just sells the seed. And then it's just a brand. So that's a lot of things going on in our market, and that's why you see a lot of designer bags. So they think, well, if I come here with a gelato bag, it just says gelato on it, that means something because of the graphics and everything. But the guy that has the original cut of gelato, it tastes a certain way. Yeah. When you get the real runts, it smells and tastes a certain way. So if we had a test, somebody said, here's some runts, and I said, nah, this ain't runts, man. I know what runts smell like. That's what you learn once you get in the medical program and wrap around. You start to enhance your awareness of what it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, and most importantly, what it does when you consume it.
All right, that's a wrap.
All right.
That was great.
Awesome.
19 and a half minutes.
All righty.